Now, for the woman of the hour, Emerald Peaceful GreenForest is a multidimensional visionary mentor, artist, and professional speaker who is passionate about serving global change agents who want to leap fearlessly into their highest level of service and who want to profit handsomely from following their purposeful path. Her international client roster includes New York Times bestselling authors, Hay House radio show hosts, conscious entrepreneurs, transformation artists, and many other leading visionaries. An award-winning entrepreneur for decades and one of America's premier experts, she's traveled widely all over the United States and in foreign countries speaking and teaching, and has been featured in the major media multiple times, most recently on CNBC's nightly business report. Hostess of the Men on Purpose podcast, she's especially passionate about activating and assisting magnificent men who are all called to be the vanguard of the creative age so that they can align their compass and create conscious change with greater ease. Please help me to bring to the show Emerald Peaceful Green Forest.
Woohoo! We have arrived.
Yes. Boom. We're now live on Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. Emerald, we are going to rock the house. I'm so excited for this. Thank you for being on here today.
Thank you for being a man on purpose, baby.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so we're going to dive right into the theme of the day, which is mother's love. So, Emerald, how has this concept of mother's love shaped you in your life, your career, and how you show up and serve these magnificent men?
Wow, that is a very powerful, powerful place for us to start,
Yes.
Chris.
Go deep.
So I think what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about mother's abuse, if that's okay.
Please, let's go there.
Because not everybody actually on the planet comes in and has the benefit and the grace of receiving a mother who delivers love in the healthier ways, right?
That's right.
So I feel like I need to speak a little bit about how being mothered in a dysfunctional way actually activated for me parts of myself that probably wouldn't have been activated otherwise, that allow me to be much more compassionate and much more awake to the challenges that people can experience in their own life. And I will also talk about, I think, mother's love having become a mother. I think that's probably also an important thing to talk about, right? So I remember when I became a mother, it was magical. like, dude, you actually create another human being in your body. Like, that is so weird. And that's what happens, right? Like, I'll never forget the moment when I was about 4 months pregnant. And so I had just like a little, like, you couldn't even tell. Right. It was just like more like bloat. Right? And I went to the beach and I'm lying on the beach. And all of a sudden, for the first time, I felt that life inside my body.
Wow.
And the best way I can describe it for people who've never been pregnant
or never will be
is like, imagine down deep in your belly, all of a sudden feeling like the brush of a butterfly wing on the inside.
Wow.
So amazing. Like the miracle. It's a miracle.
Yeah.
Being a mother is a miracle. And so I fell in love with being a mother the moment I felt the butterfly wing inside me. And I also made a vow that I was going to be a different kind of mother. And that I was going to be, just a different kind of mother than the kind of mother that I experienced.
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't even know where to go from here, Chris, but as a result of that, choice, it really set me in my own life on a completely different course. And it also allowed for really powerful choices to be made along the course of my motherhood that ultimately ended up in me having to actually make one of the hardest choices of my life. And it's interesting because I just got off of another podcast where I recapitulated this whole thing on the other podcast. So today must be big healing day. We're going back down that road and making sure that I've scraped out anything that needs to be scraped out and cleared it once and for all.
Yes.
Because my own son actually in 2016 locked me in the basement and got on top of me and threatened to cut me up in little pieces and throw me in the river when he was high on homeopathic nasal spray.
Wow.
And I had to make one of the hardest choices of my life that night when the sergeant said to me, "This is a felony kidnapping charge, and you're going to need to talk to the detectives." And in that moment, I could feel myself close and I could feel my throat close and I could feel the consequences of having my son charged with felony kidnapping. And there was a part of me that just did not want to go talk to the detectives, even though I had just come out of and thankfully escaped literally being threatened with being cut up into little pieces. And the sergeant gave me the gift of life in that moment by saying to me, and this whole thing that happened with my son happened after a 7-year period of multiple suicide attempts on his part, multiple run-ins with the law, lots of drug addiction issues, drugs that you didn't even know existed, I found out about. And I'm pretty savvy, but they have shit out there now that, dude, you can't even imagine. They have chemistry labs in Texas that make LSD, but it's like one molecule off, so it can't be considered illegal.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy shit. So I had to make that decision that night. And the sergeant said to me, as I was literally struggling with, okay, I just had this experience of almost being killed. And I have to choose whether or not to continue talking to the detectives and put a felony kidnapping charge on my son's head, even though that's what happened, right? Even though that's what happened. And so the sergeant said to me, "This will be your life. This will be your life." So I want to talk about police love right now, even though this show is about mother love.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go there.
That policeman, that sergeant, put my nose in the poop and helped me to see the truth of that in that moment. And as soon as he said that to me, I was like, oh, hell no. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with this. Yeah. And so the hardest thing I ever had to do as a mother, besides having the child and raising the child, was, putting a felony kidnapping charge on the child's head, which was a consequence of the choices that he had made. Because I was like, that's not my life. I'm not doing another. I've been through 7 years of incredible difficulty in parenting. And I approached it with as much love and compassion and desire not to be the abusive mother that my mother was. But maybe maybe the pendulum swung too far, right? Maybe I swung the pendulum too far. I'm not going to speculate now. But what I will say is that I made the decision to go talk to the detectives. And I had to choose myself. I had to choose to love myself enough. And ultimately, I think actually love my son enough to stop interfering with the consequences of his choices. Yeah. Yeah. And today, that has resulted, thankfully, after a year of being in, jail and in the court system, and he was prevented from even having any contact with me at all. A year went by, and he actually reached out last November and asked if he could come see me, and apologized. And subsequently, the big miracle happened where at 22 years old, he wrote me about 2-3 months ago in March, extensive texts of, I am so sorry for everything that I put you through. I can't imagine how much torture it must have been for you to watch me, repeatedly trying to destroy myself and my life and all these bad choices. I mean, such a level of self-awareness at 22 years old that I didn't have. The self-awareness that I didn't have until I was, twice that age or better, is the result of me loving him and myself enough to say, no,
that's the line.
This is the end.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done playing that game.
Yeah.
No more.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Thank you for going there. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably and authentically. And I want to go into, when you saw this headline, the theme on the flyer, like, what came up for you?
Yeah. Well, what came up for me is, so many things. First of all, what came up for me was, I am so honored that you chose me to be on today, as one of your guests for today. It was a surprise, definitely a surprise. And I'm unbelievably honored that you've chosen me, and that you've also chosen to honor your own mother. Because I think because of the experience that I had with my own son, it was, doubly important for me to have been selected for this. So thank you so much. And it was also just doubly juicy for me to see a man honoring his mother. Like, yay, how cool is that? Right? I mean, I already see you as a man on purpose, Chris. I already see that. But for you to be honoring your mother and the mother principle and the feminine, that's just such an incredibly blessed gift in this time that we are living in. And thankfully, so many men are waking up to how important it is to value and honor the feminine, because it's half of who you are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It's half of who you are. So when you're dishonoring it, you're actually self-abusing that half of who you are. And I know that you understand this, and you've got a level of consciousness that, you are here to be a model and an example for other men to come into that right relationship with the mother principle and the mother inside of you. And so when I saw the title of today's theme, I was super excited and super honored. And I also want to add in that for me, mother is the earth too. Totally. For me, mother is the earth. And we are so ripe as a species now to finally get the level of consciousness of how important it is to honor. Like, literally, this tree that's right outside my window here is providing the oxygen that I breathe. Right? Literally, the land is providing the bananas that are here beside me, right? The earth herself is always providing, and it's such an interesting time that we live in, and it's time to really honor that mother principle and to stop taking advantage of it, and ignoring the level of provision that's being offered and dismissing it and abusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being asleep to it. What's the word? Taking for granted, right? Like, I think the biggest thing is like, oh, that's always going to be there. That's supposed to be there. That's how we were supposed to be raised, right? And
Right.
I love that you took this direction, because none of the guests have today. They've all had great responses. But the Earth Mother, like when I wrote A Mother's Love, yes, it was in dedication to my mom, and it was also in dedication to the mother spirit, the spirit of mothering, which we all have, men and women, in creating, mothering in the next generation, mothering in the change that we want to see in the world, our vision coming into reality. That's like, we nurture that, and as the father, we protect it. The mother kind of feeds it and nurtures it. And I think they both do kind of similar roles and help out. But I love that you took it there, and thank you for answering, going so deep right off the bat. Super awesome. And for anyone who doesn't fully know who Emerald GreenForest is, why don't you share a little bit more about yourself and the work that you're doing with these men and all the amazing things that you got going on right now?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris. So I'm going to give the thumbnail version.
Okay.
For about 20 some odd years, I was in the real estate business. And at the end of that career, I was partnered with two men, both of whom were incredibly abusive bullies. I was partnered with them in a project where I built 51 single family houses, 56 apartments, and an office building. And I was the national chairperson of my trade association at that time also. And then I had a spiritual awakening. And as a result of that spiritual awakening, I left behind the real estate business, and I ended up, for a few years, I had an art gallery and healing art center, and I awakened to like all of these parts of myself that I did not even know existed. I was so left-brained, everything's in the box, right? And then all of a sudden it was like, I exploded everywhere, right? And so my author arrived, my healer, I had no idea. Now I have hot hands, like I can lay my hands on people and heal them. My artist arrived, my speaker arrived, my writer arrived, my poet arrived, my dancer arrived, like everybody showed up.
Yes.
It was awesome. I was like, yay. And I went through this period where it was like such a huge, like, shift from this box life that I just was like wild. I went wild. Everything was just like, yes, let's do it. Yes, let's do that. And I also like went as far away from structure and box and everything as I possibly could get. Right. So I was like way over here now. Right. And then it became clear that I had gone a little far over the edge, and I needed to marry the two, right? I needed to bring together the spiritual and the material. And thankfully, like, I was grounded in a more left brain and let's call it masculine template initially, because when I did go hog wild in my wild creativity, I was able to at least have something to come back to that allowed me to ground it all in. And so then I spent about 8 years online. I built an online business called The Empowered Messenger, and I was serving at that time women all around the world under a different name. I used to be Amethyst Wildfire. And I helped women to feel great speaking and powerful asking for money. And I was part of what I would consider the rising wave of women who came in as a vanguard to empower women and just bring up the feminine principle on a global level. And then I went through this rite of passage with my son. And as a result of that, received another name, which I wasn't expecting, and became Emerald Peaceful GreenForest. And when I became Emerald Peaceful GreenForest, and I've changed my name legally now twice, not counting the time that I was married and changed it legally then too, so 3 times. When I became Emerald Peaceful GreenForest, everything I had built as a business around the Amethyst Wildfire energy and brand started to disintegrate. So I threw my business in the fire last March of 2017, after the month of February, when I generated $7. That was the sign. February, I generated $7. I was like, yeah, this is a sign. This business is dead. So I put that business in the fire and went through a whole rebranding process. And in that process, got clear that I was now being called to serve men, and primarily to serve men into their legacy leadership. Mm-hmm. So the men that I work with now are men who have, generally speaking, already made their money, and they know that now it's time for them to make their mark in the world. Mm. And the way we work together is I support them in both energetically anchoring that legacy vibration, number one, and number two, like going through the kind of practical pieces of, okay, what does this actually look like, and visioning it out and then getting it implemented. So I thankfully have married both my left and my right brain together, my masculine and my feminine principle, and I bring to the table 30 plus years of entrepreneurial experience in, you know, a variety of fields, and all of the juju magic of a 10-year journey down soul expansion lane.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
How did you know that your next direction was men and serving them?
That's a great question. So I was going through this rebranding process. So after I put my business in the fire, then I went into meditation and magic started to happen. Ooh. And within 3 weeks, I was selected to be one of the case studies for a TV show that was being produced for Apple's Success TV called Fix My Brand. So I was like, yeah, my brand's now dead. It's in the fire. It's like all you have is ash. Like all that's left of my brand is ash. So we can make a phoenix come out of the ash. I'm in.
Yes.
Exactly. I'm in. So I wasn't. It didn't lose. I wasn't lost on me that there's a phoenix behind you there, Chris.
I know you saw it.
So I got involved with the Fix My Brand TV show and was one of 9 or 10 case studies. And the woman who ran the show, her name is Allie Craig. She has a system called neurohuman branding that allows you to build a brand that will grow with you. So, you know, I think one of the things that happens for entrepreneurs is they go through this. I went through this process myself. I had my store and I had a brand for that. And then I went online and I had a brand, and then that wasn't, you know, working. And I had another brand and then another brand. And so now I'm on my, you know, whatever, 4th or 5th brand. But the way she develops your brand, she creates a brand that will evolve with you rather than having to throw them in the trash and start again every time. So as we were going through that process, my initial kind of download was, I'm really here to work with creative age leaders. I believe that we're at the dawn of the creative age. You know, so if you think about it, there was the agrarian age, everybody was on the farm. There was the industrial age, everybody was in mill buildings, which is, I'm in a mill building now, but it's been repurposed as a studio space. Then we had the information age, right? Now we're in the creative age where literally, look at you, look at me. We are out of nothing creating value and creating incredible, new, innovative ways of being and doing and acting and interacting in the world. So we're at the dawn of the creative age. So initially, as we're going through this branding process, I'm like, okay, I want to do creative age leadership. Went through about 3 weeks of the branding process, 4 weeks of the branding process. And she's like, oh, we're going to create a movement and we're going to do this on social media. And this is, and I'm like 4 weeks in and I'm like, oh my God, that's too much stuff. It's exhausting. I just burnt my brand. I'm exhausted. I'm not manufacturing
seedlings. We're planting seedlings here that are going to sprout into giant oaks.
I was like, oh, I am not manufacturing a movement. That's not happening. Right. So I went to a reunion event. It wasn't really a reunion event, but I hadn't been to see one of my original online mentors in 3 years, Lisa Sasevich. So I went to her event right around this point. And all of a sudden I'm at the event and all these men are coming up to me. And I'm like, this is interesting. All these men are coming up to me. And we're talking, and I'm like suddenly, seeing things for them and channeling and, just informally. And on the airplane home, I just got the download. You're supposed to be working with men. And that was a surprise. And I was like, well, okay, I can do that. I can do that. And frankly, what's happened for me, Chris, is as a result of saying yes to that and choosing to work with men, I was honored and given the privilege of serving a number of men in the creation of the brand. And now part of the creation resulted in the Men on Purpose podcast, which I launched last January, January of 2018. And frankly, the entire process of working with men has been immensely healing for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, the universe always knows what the medicine is, and it's just your job to take the spoonful and say, yes, I'll swallow it. Right? So the medicine for me was working with men. And what this has allowed me to do is I literally had a lifetime, Chris, so we started talking about mothers, but I had a lifetime of being involved with men, starting with my dad, my own father, who were either abusive, addicted, or both, or alienating. Like I felt alienated from the masculine, right? So on the one hand, I carry a high level of masculine energy in me. But on the other hand, I'm like terrified and alienated, and like I don't know how to navigate. I don't know how to talk to these beings, I don't get it. And I was a magnet for abuse. I had an abusive dad. I had an abusive brother who sexually abused me when I was a child, not penetrating wise, but definitely crossed boundaries. Right. Had a verbally abusive alcoholic other brother, 2 husbands that were abusive and alcoholic or addicted to drugs, multiple boyfriends that had challenges in those areas, 2 bully partners when I was in the real estate business. And it's just like, okay, I finally got to this place where I ended up having this whole experience with my son, and then like a second awakening, right? And the second awakening was, wow, I am the single unifying thread in all of those relationships. So I can either live in a world where men are the enemy and men are dangerous and men are violent and men are abusive, and I don't get them and I can't connect with them, even though I'm supposed to be having fun and sex and all those good things, right? Like, somebody please just hug me. I just want to be hugged, let's have some sex. Let's have a great orgasm. And it's just like, it was all this yuck, right? Or I could live in a world where, wow, I see a magnificent man right there. Look, there's one right there. Look, he's magnificent. And so, having made the choice to say yes to the medicine of working with men, now my job is to find them and to seek them out and to attend to them and to spotlight and celebrate and amplify and ignite and applaud and all of those things, men who are on purpose. And the more you look for that, the more you find it. I'm discovering. So, yeah.
Do you see, I'm curious, because this is, like you said, the philosophy behind this, put into your lap, lots of healing going on. Do you see that in the future, after you've served enough men, it will become multi-gender, men and women in your brand? Possibly.
Anything's possible. Anything's possible, Chris. So I've been guided by spirit in my life and business since my spiritual awakening in 2002. Yeah. Everything is guided by spirit. So I am not attached to any form. I am committed to being of service. So it's interesting you ask, because I recently got a referral from a colleague of mine, and I actually just took on a woman client. So You must be psychic, Chris. But
No,
the work that I'm doing, so my brand is facing the men and serving the men, and I have men who are on board as well. My brand is facing the men, serving the men, doing the Men on Purpose podcast. Like, that's what the door is decorated with. But, you know, my next door neighbor knocked on the back door and said, hey, there's this woman here. Can you help her? And so what's interesting is I'm actually working with a woman who is just coming out of an abusive relationship with a man. So, so the answer is, when it's a right fit and I have something in my cupboard that can be of service, and the infinite source puts an opportunity to be of service in front of me, I will serve. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. I love it. Cool. I was just curious about that, and we're having a lot of fun, definitely. Let's start diving into these 7 C's of conscious change.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah. So we have to recognize change, right? So the universe is constantly changing. The life is constantly changing. The world is constantly changing. We are constantly changing. And we can be on the part of the wave where we're getting our face smashed into the sand, right? Because, hey, the change wave is there whether you like it or not. Right? Right? So we can be on the part of the wave where we're getting our face smashed into the sand repeatedly and then dragged out with the undertow. Or we can say, whoa, the waves just keep coming. It's like surfing, right? The waves just keep coming. So where do you want to be? Do you want to be sitting on your surfboard and then choosing, making that conscious choice? So let us engage in conscious change.
Let's do it.
It's way less abrasive to the face. You know what I'm saying? So it's time for a change in your life.
Yes.
And you can feel it, right? We can feel it. We can feel that things are just ready to pop. So the first step for creating conscious change is clarity. Clarity is divinity. And I have a little gift for your guests if you'd like me to offer that.
Yes, please.
You can do that now because it's about clarity. So if you're interested in getting some clarity and you're caught in the clouds of confusion yourself, I have a little gift at emeraldgreenforest.com/gift, GIFT. It's an 8-minute meditation called the Instant Clarity Exercise. So what clarity means is knowing what you want. Like, what do you want, Chris? What do you want? Right? I just saw you at the New Media Summit and you had a hot babe.
Yes.
And the two of you are like so hot. Like the energy is like, wah. And I can imagine at some point, in the not too distant past, you made the decision that you wanted a hot like fire relationship.
That's right.
You got clear, right? So whatever you were in wasn't working. It was time to make a change. And you said, I know what I want. I want a hot like fire relationship where the sparks are so flying that everybody around me is getting activated. Whew, yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, baby. I was like, oh, yeah. Whew, grabbing my boobies, just watching that thing going on over there. So you knew what you wanted, right? Clarity. That's number one. The second step in creating conscious change is courage. And that means finding the heart to go after it. Because you could be wanting that all day long and getting, blue in the balls, Chris. Just thinking about it, like, wow, I really want that. I really want that. I really want that. But you're not doing anything about it, right? So the second C is creating that courage in your own heart, right? Finding that courage in your own heart to say, I'm going after it.
Doing it.
I'm going to go after it.
It's mine.
The third C in creating conscious change is coaching. Because most of the time we know what we want. We're willing to go after it, but we haven't got a freaking clue how, right? So you want to get a coach who's got what you're looking for. So if you want to have wealth, go find somebody who's got a jet.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
If you want to have a hot babe relationship, go find somebody that you see has created a hot babe relationship in their life and say, yo, I want to be coached, right?
Yes.
You need to get support, right? Because if you could have done this by yourself, you would have, right?
Yes.
And the coach is going to help you, or mentor. I call myself a mentor. I don't like to call myself a coach, but coach is working with the 7 C's. So a coach our mentor is going to help you to dismantle all the crap that's keeping you from having what you want, and will also support you immensely in clarifying even further, because the clearer you are, the easier it is. Just clarity is divinity. Let me go back to step 1, clarity. So then step number 4 is create. So here's what's important for men. And here's what I find is important for men to both be aware of, and also for me to communicate that I help men with. And that is getting in touch with your creative energy.
That's right.
Because if you want to create, you have to be having your creative energy activated. Now, our creative energy is our sexual energy, but it's also our emotions. And men are conditioned by society to repress, suppress, and depress their emotions. And so when they repress, suppress, and depress their emotions, what they're left with is anger or addiction, or sometimes even suicide, which is not fun, right? So that's going to create a change, but it's not going to be necessarily too conscious. And I watched this happen in my own son, who went from this amazing, brilliant, radiant child who was, glorious, right? Even though he had experienced sexual trauma when he was 3 years old. He was sexually assaulted in daycare when he was 3. Even though he had gone through that, he was still, up until adolescence, this incredibly sensitive, radiant, creative, joyful young person.
Yes.
And as soon as he hit adolescence, the cultural conditioning started to, suppress, repress, depress. And that was when he started the drug, path, and multiple suicide attempts, multiple. Ugly, not good. And so the work here at step 4 is to unleash your creative power, which also means being willing to dismantle, and that's why the coach part is so important, those cultural conditions that say you're not allowed to feel, this is the range of emotion that you're allowed to have, and it's just the red zone, right? You're not allowed to be expressive. You're not allowed to dance. You're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to do all this bullshit that you're not, quote, allowed to do if you're a man, is bullshit. It's bullshit. And what that is it's actually, I'm going to call this false manhood. So literally, society takes your balls away and puts you in a box that says you're only one-dimensional. This is all you have. You can provide and you can be angry, and that's all you got, right? And that's bullshit. That's not a real man.
Right.
That is not a real man. A real man, one of my guests on my podcast, Andy Grant, who runs the Real Men Feel podcast, what he said is, before we're men, we're humans, and all humans have emotion, right?
Yes.
So we want to help men to unleash their full emotional range. And because most men have been culturally conditioned and repressed and suppressed, it's exponentially more important to have a coach or mentor who can create the sacred space and container, because when all you've had is anger, it's pussy in there.
Yeah.
It's nasty in there, and it can be acidic and caustic when it starts to get released. So you need to have a place within which like it's like a pressure relief valve or a pressure cooker, like that little thing on the pressure cooker that you're letting some of this out in a more controlled way rather than splatting all over the place and injuring the people that you were actually really underneath all of that you actually love and want to have in your life and be part of your life. So step 4 is create. And that means take the leap, engage in inspired action, and engage your emotional range to fuel what you want to change, right? What you want to create in the world gets fueled, but all of this stuff is actually trapped power. Like it's massive fuel.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I love this. I love this real quick because, like, one, you said range. I love range because range, it what is it? It connotates or connotes mastery. It shows mastery. The more range that you have, and the easier I can go to like hell in a handbasket and just like furious, right? Or just like Mother Teresa love, the more quickly I can go back and forth between those and then get back to center. That's mastery. That's like true bliss, consciousness, all that good stuff. And I also loved how you said, you know, that pent up energy. When I found out I was like channeling my life in the wrong way and partying and, you know, doing drugs and going down the wrong path, I said, okay, I'm never going to wind up in this place again. Now what do I do? And I redirected my focus and all my passion and energy and like this passion I had and unleashed when I was out there partying, and like I was like fiery when I was partying. So now let's turn it into productivity. Let's turn it into changing people's lives and transforming people's lives. So I love that, cultivating that energy. And if it was is being misdirected, great. You have massive sources of energy that you can now redirect with the proper training, the right coaching into productive and beneficial ways.
Yeah. And I want to just make it clear, we're not talking good, bad here. Okay. What we're saying is, even if you've only been given permission to have the emotion of anger and everything else has been repressed and suppressed, it's so powerful. There's so much power there. Let's harness that power. And I love that you use the word channel, and channel it in the direction of creating the change that you want in your life. Like, this is the fuel, right? This is the fuel. And so part of it is safely taking that lid off, right? And then consciously choosing, right? Because choice is one of the C's of creating conscious change. Consciously choosing to say, oh my God, I am powerful. Look at this vast array of fuel I have.
Yes.
What would I like to do with it? Right? What would I like to do with it? So we want to choose what we're doing. And that's part of the creating conscious change process, is choosing. And that means you're allowing yourself to have permission to go for and reach your dreams. You're choosing. You're saying, I give myself permission. You're accepting that whatever it is that you want to create is valid. You're accepting that whatever that inspiration is that you have is something worthy of putting your power, your life force energy into, right? And you're allowing yourself. So maybe you spent your life being told you needed to grow up and be a doctor, but what you really are is a ballet dancer, right?
Yeah.
You're allowing yourself to be who you were actually coded to be when we're making changes at the level that we're talking about here, right? So you get to choose. And when we go through the conscious change process, activating the awareness in yourself, oh my God, I get to choose. I choose. So much power there. Yes. Amazing amounts of power.
Yes.
So then the next C in the conscious change process is checking in. You want to be checking in to assess and adjust, right? So that you're aligned, so that, you know, okay, I want to be going to the moon, right? I want to be going to the moon, and I'm activating this and I'm creating and stuff's going on, and I'm letting go of some of the stuff that doesn't serve me anymore, and I'm accessing my power, and I'm saying yes, and I'm creating, and then all of a sudden it's time. There comes a time where it's important to take a pause and say, okay, look at how far, first of all, look at how far I've come.
Yes.
And secondly, am I on track to where I want to be going? Right. And so we can take pauses in the change process anytime because we get to choose. Right.
Yes.
So we could choose to take a pause day one. We could choose to take a pause week one. We could choose to take a pause month one. We could choose to take a pause year one. But it's very important to check in periodically to make, when a rocket ship is going to the moon, there's course correction going on all the time, right? And so when you're accessing all this level of power, you definitely want to be channeling it intentionally and checking in like, oh my God, is my action, here's a key question.
Yes.
Are my actions in alignment with my intentions? So I'll give you an example of how this goes off. I was working with, this is a woman example. I was working with a woman who said that she wanted to fill her high-end program. And her high-end program, she was getting ready to raise the price also. So she's in this decision process of, is she ready to go from 6,000 to 10,000, right? But all her shit's coming up, right? And I can see all her shit coming up. And so instead of focusing on what are the things I can do to amplify my high-end program's magnet and value, and let people know it's here and drive people to it, like that would be in alignment with her intention, right? So instead what she's doing is she's over here coming up with a low-end program to help those people who don't have any money. And I'm like, your intention is to fill this high-end program at $10,000, and you're spending time and energy and money and staff and over here. No, actions are not in alignment with intentions there, right? So you've got to be course correcting all the time and coming back to that original clarity of knowing what it is you want. Like that was what I said to this person when I talked to her the other day. I said, like, what is it you really want here? And she's, I want to fill my high-end program. I'm like, then stop talking about this other thing. Stop doing that because that is not in service to what you say you want. Right?
Yes.
It's not.
Right.
So the final C of the 7 C's of creating conscious change.
Wait, so we have 1 is clarity.
Clarity.
2 is courage.
Courage.
3 is coaching.
4
is create. 5 is checking in.
Choose. 5 is choose.
Got it.
Choose. Give yourself permission. Allow and accept yourself permission to reach your dreams. So I do want to talk a little bit more about choose here and I'm going to use myself as an example.
Cool.
Back in 2008, I decided I wanted to go online because I wanted to create a business that would allow me to travel anywhere in the world by the time my son was 18.
That's right.
And he was at that point, I don't know, 2008, he was probably 10.
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay.
So literally within 17 months, I actually had created that.
Wow.
But I had it out there, right? So I had it out there. And so I kept in this creation process to create something that was already created because I had not acknowledged and given myself permission to own that I had actually done what I had dreamed I was going to do.
Wow.
And it took me a couple of years after I had created it for me to finally say to myself, oh, I actually already have this.
Wow.
Because I had held it out here. So that's one of the things that can happen for dreamers is we can hold our dream and we can be like, head down, I'm creating. And we don't even realize, whoa, we actually already did it. Wow. Right? So that's why celebrating, which is the 7th C, celebrating is so potent. Celebrating that you actually did what it was that you wanted to do, that you created what it was that you wanted to create, and really enjoying everything that manifested, because there's always ripple effect when you create change. Really enjoying and honoring, coming back to honoring, which we started with, what manifested from your decisions, from your desires to create this conscious change, and from your willingness to invest. I originally used to have the word enjoy what manifests from your hard work, but what I want to say is I want to take the word hard out of there, because I think we live in a culture that overemphasizes hard work, and that's bullshit too.
Yep.
What I want to say is enjoy what manifests from your engagement in your own process.
Wow.
Right. And to somebody outside, that can look like hard work. But if you're really fully consciously engaged in your own process of conscious change, it's not hard at all.
Loving it.
Woohoo!
Loving it.
we're riding the wave, right?
That's
we're
right.
riding the wave with our surfboard. We're not getting our face smashed, right? So I think those people who are proponents of just work hard, those people actually are into the face smashing shit, and I'm not into that anymore.
I love it. And I love celebrating, because like all these we can practice and notice on a daily basis, right? Like, how clear am I? How courageous am I? Am I getting the coaching that I need, or do I need that support? Am I creating? Am I being the creator of this? Am I choosing powerfully? I love how you gave the distinction of permission to pursue my dreams, like I'm giving myself permission, and owning the dream, owning when I've achieved it too, right? Like I choose that, like I've arrived, like thank you. Exactly. And that goes into checking in. We could do that daily, and then celebrating. That's something we can start doing right now, and practicing that muscle, practicing that energy, so that when we get to the thing that we've wanted and dreamt of and slaved over, not anymore.
Yeah, no more slaving. We're not doing that shit anymore.
The thing that we've rode the wave
We're cruising. The thing we cruised through. We cruised through that conscious change, right?
Yes. So it's like being able to get ourselves ready for that big win. This is beautiful, Emerald.
I'm just now in this moment, because I'm a channel too. Yep. I'm just now in this moment hearing that we need to add a bonus 8th C. Ooh, right? Let's do it. I like the 7 C's because it has this whole idea of we're surfing the seas, and I'm very creative. I can't help myself. But we're getting a bonus 8th C. The creator has arrived to create an 8th C. Yes. Here we go. And the 8th C I'm getting is community. And so how I want to honor the 8th C is I want to say, thank you, Chris, for giving me the honor of being able to be here with you. Thank you to everyone who's here with us in this marathon for coming together in community to learn and to grow and to create conscious change with each other, because we do it with each other. We are shooting ourselves in the foot and setting ourselves up for the face plant in the undertow if we think we are doing it by ourselves. And so thank you to everyone who's part of this magic that you've created, Chris. And thank you for being willing to be the creator.
Yes. Thank you, Emerald. Thank you. This moment is everything, and this is just the beginning.
Yeah, baby. Bring it on. I can't wait to see and that's the beautiful thing about community, because when we all finally come together with these with our amazing energy, with our amazing capacity to connect with source, with our amazing desire to be conscious creators in the world, when we all it's like popcorn, you put all the kernels in, and then we'll put a little fire underneath it, got that Phoenix fire going on, and a little bit of the old amethyst wildfires coming out, right? And then everything's like, now the world is magic. Like the whole world is magic, and we live in a state of awe and wonder every day. Like that's my biggest prayer, besides clarity is divinity. I do love that one. My biggest prayer is never let me lose my sense of awe and wonder. never let me lose my sense of awe and wonder. And I have to tell you, Chris, it was a miracle that Emerald Peaceful GreenForest was born out of amethyst wildfire. It was a miracle that the mother love of amethyst was sufficient to lay down her life, literally, in service to the rite of passage for the mother and the son to end the cycle of abuse and addiction and alienation once and for all, at least in our line. And yeah, I think that's all I got for you, baby.
I'm sure there's oceans of reserves ready to overflow, and we have an hour today. So yes, for now.
Whew, I'm feeling like, okay, it's time to bring down the burner. Just turn the burner down to simmer, and like we got your fire and my forest. We got to be a little mindful of not getting too hot. Not getting too hot, baby. So I poured enough wood into your fire.
That's right. We're going to be burning for the rest of the day safely in the proper distance.
Exactly. In the right container.
That's right. Emerald, how does our audience stay connected with you, and what do you want our listeners to do next?
Next, I would like you to go to the Men on Purpose podcast.
Yeah.
And so you can get there at menonpurposepodcast.com. If you go to that page, you can list. There's a big box that says listen here. You can click on that to listen. I'd love to have you download, rate, review. We love 5 stars. 5 stars. Let me say 5 stars again. Download, rate, and review. And also on that page is if you are a man on purpose or a man on purpose who is secretly hasn't yet said to yourself that you're a man on purpose, but you'd really like to think that you are, and you want to be on the show, apply on that page, that same page, menonpurposepodcast.com. And anybody who's here who knows somebody who should be on the Men on Purpose podcast, can you please direct them to menonpurposepodcast.com and say, hey, I nominate you. I think you're a man on purpose and I think you should be on the show. Yeah, because it does amazing things for a man, I've discovered. It does amazing things for a man especially when a woman says, dude, you are most definitely a man on purpose.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You are so much a man on purpose. Yeah. Come on my show, baby. Right. So, and so if there's women out there, this is a gift that you can give to the men on purpose in your life to acknowledge them. Maybe it's your son. Maybe it's your father. Maybe it's your brother. The more we see and spotlight and elevate and celebrate men on purpose as women, the more men on purpose are going to proliferate on the planet. They're already here. All we have to do is put the spotlight on them, and it's like we nurture them with our mother love, and they grow like great big ears of corn.
I love it. Emerald. You are just spectacular, stellar, out of this universe, in another dimension. You're so awesome. And everyone, definitely stay connected with Emerald. Find her on social media. Go to emeraldgreenforest.com and menonpurposepodcast.com because she is burning it up peacefully. Peacefully green forest. Green. And Emerald, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on today.
I love you beyond measure. You're a magnificent man.
Thank you. Just the beginning.
Very much so.
See you soon, Emerald.
Bye-bye. Take care.